Greetings, my fellow world citizens. An interesting topic today. Does Nigerian English need an interpreter? Well, recently, President Ruto reportedly said that Kenyan English is one of the best in the world, and that when Nigerians speak, one may need a translator. And as you may recall, it became an uproar in the social media. Now let us turn this into a shouting, not turn this into a shouting match between Kenya and Nigeria. Let us instead use it as a teaching moment. And the first point then is that, very simple, everybody has an accent. So what does it mean to hear an accent? Well, the thing is that we hear other people's accents and miss our own. My accent feels normal to me because it is the one I use always, and I hear your accent sounding like an accent because I'm the outsider of your accent. So when President Ruto treats Kenyan English as if it is neutral and Nigerian English as if it is the one needing translation, that is a mistake. From the Nigerian side, Kenyan English also has an accent. From the British side, Kenyan English has an accent. From the American side, British English has an accent. Even inside English, people speak differently. In brief, there are no accent-free humans. So English is not one fixed sound. There is the British English, American English, Kenyan English, Nigerian English, Indian English, South African English, Jamaican English, and many other Englishes. So once English enters another cultural setting, it enters a mouth already trained by another language. If you grew up speaking Kikuyu, Luo, Kamba, Kisii, Kitaita, Yoruba, Italian, German, Hausa, Spanish, or Japanese, then your tongue has already been trained by that language. So when you speak English, traces of that first language may come through. That is not a defect. That is simply linguistic history speaking through the body. Language is an approximation. It is a code for communicating. It is never perfect. Even people speaking in the English language sometimes they misunderstand one another. Speaking the same language, that means communication is shared responsibility, where the speakers do their best to be understood. Sometimes they have to slow down, adjust to the audience, choose the words carefully. But the listener must also make an honest effort. So do not dismiss a speaker simply because the accent is unfamiliar. Sometimes what we call bad English is only English. We have not trained our ears to, and because we haven't trained our ears to that, we think it is bad. So let me give a personal example. When I taught at the University of Wisconsin in the mid-90s, a student came to me at the end of the semester and confessed something very interesting. She said, during the first week of class, she had considered dropping my course. Her question was, how can this professor of communication be teaching a communication class if he does not pronounce English properly? But she stayed. She didn't drop the class. Within a short time, she adjusted to my accent, and by the end of the semester, she was glad she had taken the class. I did not apologize for my accent. I used to tell my students, as a matter of fact, if you have difficulty with my accent, be glad. I'm introducing you to the varieties of English spoken by the rest of the world. Why? Because the world does not speak English in one sound. If you can only understand English from your own comfort zone, then your ear is parochial because you may be educated, but linguistically you are sheltered. So once you learn to listen across accents, then you become better prepared for the world as it actually is, not as you wish it to be. You learn to live with the world as is, not as you wish it to be. There's another point I find very interesting. Africans often laugh at fellow Africans for not pronouncing English properly. A Nigerian accent becomes a joke, a Kenyan accent becomes a joke, a Ugandan, Tanzanian, Ghanaian, or South African accent becomes a joke, and you hear Africans laughing at each other. But interestingly, when a European or a foreigner speaks Kiswahili badly with broken grammar and heavy pronunciation, what do we normally say? Oh, very good, you are trying. So my question is, why is the foreigner praised for trying while the African speaking English is laughed at for not sounding proper? That is not really about communication. That is about hierarchy. The foreigner is treated as superior, so even poor pronunciation is praised. The African is treated as inferior, so even successful communication is judged as a failure if it does not sound close enough to the colonial standard. That is the colonial mindset. English came to us through colonial history, and it is useful, yes, but we must remember that it was imposed on us, and we can, as some countries have replaced it with an indigenous alternative. It connects us in education, in business, in diplomacy, in media, in technology, just because of the British Empire, but we could and should not use English to create new African hierarchies. Nigerian English is legitimate, so is Kenyan English, Ghanaian English, Indian English. African American English is legitimate. All are shaped by the history, by the community, the rhythm, the local languages, and their lived experiences. And let us remember, Nigeria has used English to give the world Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and many other powerful voices, just like our Kenyan authors like Ngugi wa Thiong'o and others. So before we laugh too loudly at Nigerian English, let us remember that Nigerians have used English to produce world-class literature, theater, music, film, and public argument. So my respectful correction to President William Ruto would be this. Mr. President, the issue is not that Nigerians need a translator. The issue is that all of us sometimes need humility. We need to stop treating our own accent as invisible. We need to remember that the speaker has a responsibility to be clear and that the listener has a responsibility to be honest and put an honest effort. Above all, we need to stop using a colonial language to create new African hierarchies. The question is not who speaks English without an accent. Nobody does. The real question is, are we communicating with respect and are we understanding each other? If the purpose of language is communication, then every accent deserves hearing. And if the purpose is dignity, then no African should need to apologize for the sound of their own mother tongue creeping into the English language. If you have enjoyed this discussion, please feel free to write a comment, share the link, put a like there, and we are all continuing this community conversation as we look at the global community. Thank you.